Okay, I guess I'm starting a minute late. Somehow it got away from me there for a second. So anyhow, let's get started here. So anytime you're trying to learn a new program, it can be difficult just trying to figure out where to begin. Well, we're going to hit a few general topics with broad strokes and just try and get past that initial hump for you. So let me get over to Traversal PC here. And we're going to do a couple of things here. I've got a file open already, but we're going to go from here. When you open Traversal PC, basically you're just going to see this, a blank screen with nothing open. So one of the first things that you need to become familiar with are the managers. Managers in Traversal PC are high-level views that deal with various aspects of your file. All right, so these are the managers that are available to you in this menu. Just like everything in Traversal PC, there's more than one way to access them. I could come to the Manage menu to access a manager, or they're also here on the navigation toolbar are all of your managers. And in my case, I have 5 of those managers are docked and auto hidden over here on the right-hand side of the screen. So let's go to the Tasks Manager first. And rather than having it auto hide, I'm going to pin it to the desktop. So I'm just going to hit this little stick pin to pin it to the desktop, and you can see 3 of those other managers are now in tabs with my Tasks Manager. This is one of the ways you can work with your managers. The desktop is extremely customizable. You can set it up however you like it. A lot of people have multiple monitors, and they will stretch the program out over both monitors and have certain managers on one side, other managers on the other side, maybe a drawing on the right-hand monitor and data on the left-hand monitor. Lots of ways you can work with it. So totally up to you. In the Tasks Manager, which is where we are, at the top it will develop a recent file list with your most recent file at the top. All right, and this is the file I've already got open. It gives you access to your surveys, an alternate shared surveys folder, our sample surveys. I can also create a new survey from here. Once again, more than one way to do it. So I could create a new survey here, or I could go up here in the upper left corner to this new survey button, or for traditionalists, I could go to the file menu and choose new survey. So lots of ways to do things. Now, today we are going to focus on the views that you will use most. And one of those views is the drawing view. And that is the view that you saw initially. This is where your final drawings are created. So you will spend a significant amount of time here. However, keep in mind that everything in Traversal PC is a different representation of your data, and that includes the drawings. So this drawing is being drawn by the data that is in this file. So this is very different than a traditional CAD program. One of the major differences is the way paper works in Traversal PC. In Traversal PC, you're always working on a sheet of paper. So in this case, if we look up here at the top bar of the drawing view, it gives me the title of the window, plus what the name of the drawing is, final, as well as the page size and what printer is selected, as well as information on what is being displayed, whether it's grid or ground, various things. All right. So in this case, you can see that we're set up to the Traverse PC PDF printer on a legal size sheet of 8.5 by 14. If I want to change that page size in Traverse PC, I would simply go to, once again, more than one way, but go to Tools, Print, and I can do a page setup, just like in your normal office type Windows programs like Microsoft Word. You'd simply go in, you do a printer setup or a page setup, whatever you need to do, and just set your page size. That's the way it works in Traverse PC. You don't necessarily need to have different size templates for different size sheets of paper. All right. What we have here in the drawing, this is what computer geeks know as WYSIWYG. What you see is what you get. And what that means is what I'm looking at on this drawing here is how it will end up printing. If I want to see how that works, I could come, once again, more than one way. I can right-click the background of the drawing, come to Tools, Print, and I can do a print preview. And now I can see exactly how this drawing will print. I want you to notice right now, we're seeing margins around this that we weren't seeing a moment ago. That's because Traverse PC in its default settings, and you can change this, but in its default settings, we're not going to take up your desktop space with this area that you're not working in. All right, so we just don't show it to you in your normal working environment. So here we are. Here's this drawing, and you're seeing everything that's inside the border rather than all of that blank area that you're not using. Okay? Let's take a look at another manager now. That is the Traverses Manager. That's this tab here. And everything here, as I said, is customizable. I could take this Traverses Manager out of that tabbed group of managers. I could float it on the desktop. I could bring it over and dock it on the left side if I choose. It's pinned to the desktop on the left. I could auto hide it on the left. You can lay this out however you choose. In addition, if I stretch this out, you can customize what you see in the managers and in all of these views. All of these views are customizable to meet your needs. So it's up to you how you set them up. For example, in the Traverses Manager, I could set it up to display various things such as, if I go down here to Tools, View, Format View, I could come in here and tell it, well, I want to know what kind of closure this is. Is this traverse a closed loop or closed point to point, an open traverse? What? How much relative error is there? So I could turn that on. And I can set up a variety of fields here as I can in every view is customizable to some degree. All right. So and I got something. There we go. So this is a closed loop and there's no error. So it's just saying it's closed. It's flat closure. All right. This is an open traverse. This is a closed loop traverse. So all of this is customizable. All right. I'm going to go ahead and auto hide that for a moment. So you can auto hide your managers so that they come and go when you point at them, or you can have them floating on your desktop. Whatever you need to do, if you're working with a laptop, you're going to lay out your desktop one way. When you're working with a desktop computer, you'd lay it out probably completely different with multiple monitors. So it's up to you. Also in the desktop, when you open the other windows that are available to you, like the Kogo tools, the these windows will pop up where you leave them. So if I like my intersection dialog box to be here, then when I reopen it, it should pop back up right where I left it. So we're trying to set it up the way you like it, and let you work with it the way you need to for what you are doing, because everybody does things differently. So this is just in Windows that we're working with here, just normal Windows you should be familiar with. Hopefully you're familiar with right-clicking and context menus. I use them a lot, especially when I'm working in a drawing. I can right-click an object and I will get a set of options for that particular object that I've right-clicked on. So I could go to the properties of this north arrow and, I want this to be a little bit larger on this drawing, so I can change its size if I want to, whatever I wish to do here. Whereas if I click on the background of the drawing, I get a completely different menu. That's why they're called context sensitive. Depending on what you right click on will determine what options are available to you. All right, standard Windows functionality. All right, and so that's the way it's laid out. And I realized just now that I kind of skipped something that, just looking at my notes, I just kind of skipped over it. The hazards of live seminars. Well, I messed up and I skipped something. I wanted to show you how to create a new survey. So let's take a look at that real quick. So as I showed you earlier, I can do it from many places. I'm just going to come here and choose New Survey. It's going to ask me if I want to save this file that I've got open. I'm going to say no, because I haven't really done anything to it, and it's one of our samples. So this is the survey information dialog box. This is what you'll see anytime you create a new survey in Traverse PC. It has a lot of options, but only one thing is required of you, and that is a file name. So up here, it's already got my path filled in to my default path that I've set, and that's customizable by you. And I can, notice that's all highlighted in blue. I can simply type in a file name if I choose to. So I'm just going to call this live demo. Oops, if I could type. When I move out of that field, you'll see that it populates it with everything else it needs, the path and the extension on the file. All I needed to type was live demo, so it's very easy there. Absolutely everything else in this dialog box is optional. Now, there are things that you will want to set up as you go. One of them, obviously, you're going to want to be in the right units for the particular survey. So if this is a survey in meters, set it to meters. Once again, Traverse PC will work the way you have set it up. So if I'm always working in meters, it's going to know that I'm always working in meters, and it'll automatically be set to that. In my case, I always work in feet, so that's what it knows. That's why it gave me feet. But you can set it to various units for your file. This stuff is all optional. This stuff can be used to automate portions of your drawing. Obviously, if you're working on a specific coordinate reference system rather than assumed coordinates, you'd want to, I can choose an appropriate assumed coordinate system, and I've got something sideways in my program here. Let me get, here we go. No, that's not what I want. So choose the coordinate reference systems I want. And, all right, and what zone I'm in. I am currently in Oregon North. So choose what I want. I can set what kind of units I can set project factors, etc., etc., etc. So lots of stuff that I can set here. When I choose OK, Traverse PC, I want to go back to that. I forgot one thing. When I choose OK, Traverse PC gives me an idea of what I may want to do next. And if this message gets too annoying, once you've seen it enough times and you know what you're doing, right down here, I can tell Traverse PC, hey, I don't want to see this again. But it gives me some ideas. Maybe you want to add a traverse to enter some data. Maybe you want to add a drawing, or maybe you want to import some data. So it tells you some quick steps on how to do that stuff. I'm going to choose close, and then I'm going to go back to that dialog box. We can go there at any time. It's up here on this toolbar. Go to survey information. I'm right back into this. One thing I wanted to show you here is if you're ever anywhere in Traverse PC, now this does depend on your hardware. This depends specifically on your keyboard. At this point, keyboards are getting very soft, and by that I mean that they are programmable and come set up various ways. Standard Windows keyboard, on the upper left corner, there should be a key called F1 now. To access F1, you may need to use something like an FN or function key along with it. But when I hit F1 from anywhere in Traverse PC, Traverse PC opens, and it opened on my other monitor because that's where I had left it before. Traverse PC opens the help topic for that dialog box. So no matter where you are in Traverse PC, if something doesn't make sense to you, or you're thinking, what do I do now? Hit F1, and hopefully right where you are will answer the question. But if not, maybe one of the links in the topic or down at the bottom of the topic will help you. Like, what the heck are these drawing variables? All right. So you can get to help from anywhere in your program, from any window, by hitting your F1 key. Okay. So let's talk about traverses. Traverses, in case you hadn't already realized this, are the heart and soul of Traverse PC. Traverse PC initially started out as an electronic version of your field book, and it has since grown and expanded and lots of things added to it, but it still revolves around this field book concept of traverses. And as we have run into various things like shape files and various other things have come to be, they mesh very nicely with traverses. And you'll find that out as you learn more about Traverse PC. So traverses are very important to the program. Let's go ahead and let's create a traverse. I'm going to go ahead and auto hide this tasks manager, and I'm going to go to the traverses manager. This is where I would manage any traverses that are in my file. So I'm just going to double click on a blank line to create a new traverse. This brings up the new traverse dialog box. Now, I am going to give this traverse a name. It's very important that you use good naming conventions for your traverses, because your traverses are going to be doing a lot of the work for you. So it's and you will end up having many traverses. So you want them to just be easy to identify. This traverse has this in it. All right. In this case, I'm going to enter some deed data. So I'm going to call this traverse deed data. Now, I might call this lot 3 if I'm working on a subdivision, and this is and I'm working on something on lot 3. Whatever it is, I'm just going to give it a name that I will recognize. Oh, that's what this traverse is. I'm going to skip a few things, but right down here, I'm going to tell Traverse PC, what kind of data I want to enter. In this case, I want to enter some deed data with some curves. All right. Now, you'll see what this is in just a moment. We'll talk about this just a little bit. Like I say, we're going to use broad strokes here. We're not going to go into a lot of detail. And the next thing is, how do I want this to display in a drawing? So I'm going to come down here, and I want this to draw as property lines. Once again, all of this is customizable. You can set these up the way you work. All right. Right now, I'm going to have it create a temporary drawing so we can see what's happening as I go. And so I'm going to say OK. And what Traverse PC does now, it opens my Traverse view as well as the drawing view. Now I want to be able to see both of these, so I'm just going to stretch my drawing view out over here and then skinny it up so that I can see it, and over here is my data that I'm going to be entering. Now you notice that I have point number, point type, bearing, distance, radius, arc length, northing, easting, and description. That is because I chose to use deed with curves. As I said earlier, we'd look at this. This is customizable, and this is very important to you. There is a learning guide, and I'm going to talk about resources a little bit later on. A lot of your resources that are available. There is an entire learning guide that deals with the Traverse view. And the first chapter in it tells you how you can work with your Traverse view formats. So if I go in to format this view, just as we saw in the Traversal Manager, I can set up a lot of different things. Now, there are a lot of options available to me here, including things like radial bearings, you name it. So if you know what kind of data you will be entering, and if you know how to format the Traverse view, you can be very efficient as you're working with your data. All right, but using the deed with curves format gave me what we're seeing right now. I'm going to cancel this window. Once again, if I had any questions there, I could hit F1 for help. I'm just getting ahead of myself. I'm going to go back there. I'm going to add one thing. I'm going to add a capital Q. By the way, these are case sensitive. I'm going to add a capital Q so that we can, so that my Traverse view will display the delta of my curve when I get to that point. All right, I'm going to say OK now, and you can see now we've got delta as well. I'm just going to stretch this out, and I'm going to hit this button here. This is not the minimize button. This is a little different than normal Windows. This is not actually minimize. This is auto size. So when I hit this, it sizes to what it sees, and you'll see as we go along, it's going to start expanding as I enter data. So right now, I just want to enter a description on this point. I could set this point at any set of coordinates. If I wanted on real-world coordinates, and know what the coordinates are, I could type in the coordinates, or I could set it on that later. Traverse PC, by default, just set it at 0, 0. If I want 5,000, 5,000, I put that in. Totally up to you. And I'm going to label this point as a found 1-inch iron pipe. Oops. I hit enter, and Traverse PC takes me down to the next point. Notice the window got a little larger when I did that, and it's asking me for a bearing. Now my bearing to the second point, remember this is just deed data, my bearing is due east. So hopefully you already know this, but Traverse PC uses a quadrant bearing system. Northeast is 1, southeast 2, southwest 3, northwest is 4. So we use 1 digit for quadrant, 2 digits for degrees, a period, 2 digits for minutes, 2 digits for seconds, and then anything else is decimal seconds. So my bearing, I want to go due east, so that is either 1 or 2, 90. Now I don't need trailing zeros. If I'm going on a straight 0, bearing, all I need to type in is 190. I hit enter and it takes me to distance. I give it my distance, 284.88. And I hit my enter key, and Traverse PC takes me to the radius field. And that's based on that format we saw. I hit enter again, it takes me to arc length. Enter again takes me down to the next point. All right, let's give this a bearing. Now we're going to go northeast on this one, so that's quadrant 1. And it's 23 degrees, period, 27 minutes, 0 seconds. So all I need is 123.27. I hit enter and you see that's north 23 degrees, 27 minutes east. And my distance 163.5. And let me show this to you. On any of these points, okay, this point I want to put a description on it. Well, I'm just using the arrow keys on my keyboard. Notice I have not picked up my mouse in a while. I'm working with data, so I'm not grabbing my mouse. Now this is a found 5/8 inch rebar. All right. Enter again, I'm back down on my next point. Let's go this time, and you notice, now I'm going to pick up my mouse just a point. Notice over here, we're seeing this develop as we enter the data. All right, so now I'm going to go DueWest, so that's either 3 or 4, 90. 390, DueWest, and it's 291.03. All right, enter, taking me to radius and arc length. Personally, my deed with curves format is set up so it doesn't take me to radius and arc length every time. I only go there when I need to, and I usually don't have that many curves, so I typically set mine up to not take me to radius and arc length. This is one of those efficiencies you can gain by understanding how this works. All right, I'm going to hit enter, and now I'm going to go southwest, so that would be 30.4. This is 40 minutes, but all I need is the 4. I don't need any trailing zeros. I'm going 14.08 feet, and this will be the PC of my curve. All right, so that last point, 0.5, was the PC of my curve. And my curve now is going to, here's 0.5, it is going to come down here and connect up with 0.1 and close my traverse. All right, so let's go ahead and enter this. What I have curves. There is a chapter in the alignments learning guide on horizontal curves, and there are a lot of ways to do curves. In this case, I have the chord bearing, the chord distance. I also have the radius and the arc length. So, well, Traverse PC, if I don't give it any more information, it will assume that this is a tangent curve. So I could enter chord bearing, chord distance, and a radius if I wanted to, but that's 3 things. I only want to enter 2. Let's make it easier. Okay, I don't need to give it a chord bearing and a chord distance if it's a tangent curve. So I'm just going to jump over to radius, and I'm going to say it is a 420-foot radius curve, and its arc length is 148.04. And I hit enter again, and Traverse PC gives me a new point, and I look at my drawing and I go, oh, oops, I guess I screwed that one up. Hey, we're human, it happens, right? Well, this was supposed to be a curve to the left, a counterclockwise curve, but because I entered a positive in the radius field, it gave me a curve to the right. So when you're entering a radius, a positive number gives you a curve to the right, negative number gives you a curve to the left. So all I need to do, come back up here to my radius field and type negative 420. Hit enter. Ah, there we go. That looks better. Okay, so this is one of the key things about Traverse PC. If you make a mistake, don't worry about it. Don't say, oh, I got to do that whole thing over again. You should be able to simply go fix it. I talk to people frequently who, oh, I just started over because I got so messed up. Usually you don't need to start over. Usually you can recover and just fix the problem. All right, so we've just entered a record data traverse, a deed traverse. So let's find out how good this deed closes. So at my traverse view, I'm going to go to Tools, and now I'm using the mouse again, and I'm going to go to the Closure view. So here's my closure view for this traverse. It tells me right here, it got date and time, and we're on grid distance, grid bearing. This is a closed loop traverse, 6 points from point 1 to point 6, horizontal distance, slope distance, the area, and the acreage. So Traverse PC automatically recognized this as a closed loop traverse. All right. Now, if I go to the view menu, remember all of these views are customizable. If I go to the view menu here, I can come down here and choose what closure details I want. You know, okay, I want adjustment details shown if I adjust it. Okay, so right now there are no adjustments. Here's my linear error, my relative error, all of this stuff. Now, Traverse PC has determined that this is a closed loop traverse based on its relative error. All right. And the way it determines that is if the last point of the traverse is within a specific percentage of the length of the traverse from the starting point, we'll say it's a closed loop. Once again, you can control this in the program settings. If I go to settings, my closed loop percentage is 1%. Well, that's way too high. I don't want, now, if I'm at 1% on my closure, now that's an open traverse. That's terrible. So I might set this to, well, what's my maximum acceptable? Now you don't want to go too low on this because, you know, if you're within a certain amount, maybe it should, Traverse PC should call it a closed loop and show you, oh, wow, it's way out. All right. But let's set this to 0.1. All right. And Traverse PC then will determine closed loop, whether a traverse is a closed loop based on that percentage of distance between the starting point and the last point, that divided by the total length of the traverse. Okay, hopefully that's clear. So here's this information on this traverse. Now, if we go back to the Traverses Manager, we can see what kind of traverse closure we've got. Okay, so that's how that works. Now, remember earlier, when we started this traverse, we told it to display in our drawing view as property lines. When we started the traverse, I chose the deed with curves format. That's which fields in the traverse view. And then I told it that I wanted it to draw like property lines. Well, you know, I would like it to display the name of the traverse. Maybe I've called it lot 3 or whatever. Well, I can go in to my traverse drawing settings and I can say, Let's see. We want to go to lot labels. Let's display the name of the traverse. And I want to see square footage and acreage in this drawing. I choose OK, and there's that information. Now, just a little tip here, and people run into this and I get calls about it. I can't display the area in my drawing. Well, if the traverse is not set as a closed loop in the closure view, let's say this closure view says that it's an open traverse. Traverse PC didn't pick that up. You could need to go in and edit the closure settings to tell Traverse PC what the closure is. It's just a computer. It doesn't have any kind of mental capability. It just does things. All right. So if this traverse has not met the requirements of a closed loop traverse, I'm not going to see any area in my drawing because there is no area if it's not a closed loop. All right, so that's just a little tidbit, a little thing to tuck in the back of your brain there. The traverse view, oh, I'm sorry, I should have gone back there. Let's go back there. Back to the closure view. In the closure view, once I've got what I want, I can go and I can do adjustments if I want. I could do least squares, I could balance coordinates, balance angles, whatever I need to do. I'm just going to do a compass adjustment on it, say OK, and so now it's been adjusted. Now, what you'll see, now when I adjust coordinates, what I'm going to see in my traverse view is not going to match the data that I entered, right? Because the traverse view by default displays the inverse based on the coordinates of the data, okay? So when I adjusted the coordinates, little changes happened in this traverse. Now, you can always check and see what's in your raw data. If I go to View, here's Display Raw Data, and Shift F9 is the hotkey. I use this a lot. Shift plus F9. So if we look, these are all going to be slightly different. I'm going to use a Shift F9. See the difference? You're going to see little differences along the way as we toggle between these. Okay? So you can always view your raw data. You can also recompute based on the underlying raw data. So if we were to recompute this, this would undo that that adjustment that we did because it would recompute the coordinates based on the underlying raw data. Okay. Going back to my notes here. Let me take a breath for a moment. There's so much to cover that it's kind of hard to cram all this in. Let's take a quick look. I am not going to enter all of this data, but let's take a quick look at entering some field data. All right. So I'm going to start a field data traverse, and actually, let's go ahead and close this traverse view. Remember when I started, I created a temporary drawing. So now it's asking me if I want to save this drawing as a permanent drawing. Usually I don't do this, but in this case, I'm going to say yes. Let's save this as a permanent drawing. And whoops, let's undo what I just did. That was accidental. And I'm just going to regenerate this drawing just to make sure it's up to current. Okay, so this is now a permanent drawing. Before it was a temporary drawing, it would not be saved with my file. Now it's a permanent drawing that I can continue to work on. All right, I'm going to create a new traverse for some field data. And now, so to do that, I'm going to go to the Traverses Manager. And I'm just going to come down here, double click a blank line, and I'm going to call this field data. Once again, give it a name that you're going to recognize. Okay, I went out in the field this day, and you know, and in a lot of cases I will put a date on it so that I will know, okay, I was out there and I shot this on this specific date. I tend to do that. A lot of people don't. That's just me. And once again, I'm going to choose a Traverse View format. Now, in this case, I don't want deed with curves, all right, because I'm not entering deed data. I'm entering field data. And I have slope distance and zenith angle, horizontal angle, instrument heights, target heights, all of this stuff, all right? So what I'm going to use Control 3D, all right? And how I want this to display, well, this is field data. I don't need bearings and distances on everything, you know. So let's see. Let's go with control loops. All right. I'm not going to create a temporary drawing this time. I want this to show up with my other traverse. So I'm going to share the current drawing. I'm going to say OK. And now I have my traverse view here. Now it's got slope distance, zenith angle, horizontal angle, target height, instrument height, northing, easting, elevation, and description. Different format, different fields. Okay, now this traverse, out in the field, I set up on point 2 and I backsighted point 1. All right, so I want to recall my existing points. So to do that, I'm already on the first point, on point 7. I'm going to type 2. Because this is where I'm setting up. Traverse PC always takes the point of view of the instrument. Type 2 and hit enter. Pardon me. Now Traverse PC knows that this point is in this file already, so it gives me a bunch of options here. I want you to notice that I'm not going to be touching the mouse much, and I'm not touching it right now. Because I want to recall this point, none of the other options matter to me, and that is the most common thing in this situation, so Traverse PC has already selected that for me. So I can simply hit my Enter key, and Traverse PC recalls that for me. So it now put point 2 in there, so my instrument is on point 2, I want to backsight point 1, and Traverse PC already knows I want to backsight because of my Traverse format. I want point 1, so I type 1. I hit my Enter key. I'm not touching my mouse. I hit my Enter key a second time, and I've recalled point 1. Now, in this case, I now want side shots. Notice the type field for point 2 and point 7 is blank. That's because we just leave it blank because for occupied points, all right? There are too many things that they are. They are foresights. They are occupied points. They are traverse points. We leave it blank. In other words, if I leave this blank, I shoot this point, and then go to my next point, Traverse PC says, he moved the instrument to this point. It is now occupied. So rather than having one line of, say, a side shot to the next point, and then the occupied of that point, why bother? We just leave it blank and say, that's what this is. Okay, so I'm going to come over here and I'm going to enter a slope distance of 100 and a zenith angle of 89.3. Okay, degrees, period, minutes, seconds, decimal seconds. Okay, always one period. All right, 89.3 and a horizontal angle of 30, and I forgot my instrument height and target height. My instrument height is 5 feet, so I'm just coming up here under 5 feet on my instrument. My target height is 6 feet here. Okay. And then I can tell Traverse PC what this is. Well, this is a BC. And I forgot. Hit enter, and now it wants to know if I changed the instrument height. I haven't, and I just realized that I forgot this should be a side shot. All right. I don't want to occupy this point. This point should be a side shot. So I'm going to come in now. I'm going to grab the mouse to show you something here. I could go to Edit, Point Type, and choose Side Shot. What a pain. All right. I love these hotkeys. My hands are on the keyboard. They're not on the mouse. I'm entering data. Why do I want to grab the mouse? Hotkeys. All right. Notice occupied Control plus F10, side shot F10, backside Shift plus F10. All right. Whole chapter on this in the Traversal Learning Guide. All right. So this should actually be a side shot. I'm just going to hit my F10 key. It's now a side shot. I'll hit my enter key till I get my next point. Because that was a side shot, Traverse PC gave me another side shot. So I'll go ahead and enter it, 120 feet, and zenith 89.503. Notice I'm not filling in trailing zeros. Horizontal angle is 40. My target's still 60, that's right. And this is all, okay. Here we go. So now I'm down to my next point. This point, I'm actually going to traverse ahead. So I'm going to do a Control F10 to change it to an occupied. And now I'm going to go 160, 90.05, and 50. Whoops. All right. My target height, instrument height haven't changed. I might go into my traverse format and not need to go to them. Just go to them when it changes. But they're staying steady, so I don't want to change them. All right. And I can continue entering my data this way. So now in my drawing view over here, I'm seeing two side shots drawn differently than my occupied points, my traverse points as I traverse ahead. And so this is how entering your data works. I would then go ahead and continue entering my data. So notice the status bar down here. Pay attention to your status bars. This is for the traverse view. All right. And down here is more is information. This is relative to this drawing view. All right. So your status bar is very important. Pay attention to it. So right now, shooting point 9, I'm backsighting 1, I'm set up on 2, and I'm shooting to 9. Now, when I traverse ahead next, I am now occupying 9. Traverse PC automatically assumes that I'm backsighting the previous occupied of 2. So it says I'm backsighting 2, foresighting 10. Let's say I do want to backsight a different point number. I want to backsight 1 again. I simply come to this point. In this case, I will do a Shift F10. Remember, that was a hotkey. Now it's a backsight. Recall 1, and now I'm backsighting 1. Sitting on 9, backsighting 1. Traversing ahead or shooting in side shots. Okay, so I can be very efficient. Don't grab the mouse when you're entering data. There are a lot easier ways to do it. All right. And we are running low on time. Let me see where I'm at in my notes. Okay, so this is how entering data works. If you were to import data from your data collector, which most people do, although every now and then I still run into people who are using field books, so it's totally up to you. Well, a lot of people are using GPS, but GPS or traditional surveying with a data collector, you'll be importing some data. You have to have a file open. So you would create your Traverse PC file, and then just like that message said at the start, you would go to File, Import, and then in the Import dialog box, I could choose any of various file formats, raw data, coordinates, whatever it is that I'm importing. Okay, so it would then come in and typically create a traverse. If I've brought in a raw data format, my traverse view would typically be formatted similarly to what you're seeing here. All right, if I brought in coordinate data, typically I'm not going to display all this because my coordinates, they're just coordinates, stack of points. All right. Now, let's say I've got all of my data in and I want to start working on what will end up being my finished drawing. I'm going to stretch out the drawing view a bit. I'll go to the Drawings Manager. So each file in Traverse PC can contain an unlimited number of points, an unlimited number of traverses, an unlimited number of drawings. All right, so your unlimited number of points can be shared among traverses. As you saw, point 1 and 2 are in both of those traverses that I've created. All right, so they're shared between traverses. Well, now my traverses can be shared between drawings. All right, so right now, if we look at our traverses, and I didn't show this to you earlier, but if we look at our traverses, they have check marks because of some settings I did when I created the traverses. Well, now, if I don't want to see my field data on the drawing, I can simply uncheck it and it goes away. Check it and it comes back. So the data is doing the work here. I'm not sitting here snapping lines between points. The data and the traverses are doing the work. All right, simply by checking and unchecking, tagging and untagging. Tagging is the proper name for this. So just so you'll know, good to know. All right, let's start a new drawing. So I come to my Drawings Manager, and this was my deed data traverse. Traverse PC named it the way it did because of the traverse it was based on. It was originally a temporary drawing of the deed data traverse. So that's what Traverse PC called this drawing. Now, I want to start a new drawing. So I'm just going to double click a blank line and I'm going to give my drawing a name. Now, drawing names are not always as important as traverse names. Traverse names, absolutely, please, please, please get in the habit of naming your traverses appropriately for what they contain. Drawings, not quite so important, but still, I think it's important. It's very common to see a file with 10 drawings in it. If you're working on a subdivision, you're going to have a lot more drawings. So it's a good habit to get into to name your drawings appropriately. So my first drawing was a deed data drawing. This one is going to be my finished drawing, say. Or it might be my, whoops. It might be my phase 1 drawing, or it might be sheet 1, or et cetera, et cetera. If you get in the habit of naming these things appropriately, you won't come back later and go, oh, which one of these am I looking for? All right? Not going to talk about everything here. I'm going to jump straight down to my drawing templates. We do provide some drawing templates just to get you started. Obviously, you won't be using any of our drawing templates the way they are. You will be creating or modifying. You'll either create new templates from scratch or modify ones we've given you. Totally up to you. Our goal here is you set things up one time, use them a bunch of times, and then modify them as needed as you go along. If you find yourself doing the same thing over and over and over again, there's probably a better way. In this case, I'm just going to come down and choose my mortgage drawing template and choose OK. Traverse PC opens this new drawing. Pardon me, sorry, my throat and mouth are getting a little dry here. Hang on a moment. Okay. So my mortgage drawing template automatically has this north arrow, this scale bar, has this little title block, it has this boilerplate text on it, and it was created around the coordinates of this data. All right, so this template was created around 0, 0 coordinates. That's why I see my data. If my data were not at 0 coordinates, I would come here and I might not see my data. Let me show you how that works real quick here. I'm just going to come over here. I'm going to translate this to different coordinates. I'm going to go from point 1, and I'm going, well, actually, I didn't need to do that. I'm just going to take this whole thing to 5,000, 5,000. Okay, there we go. So if my template is set up around 0 coordinates and my data is out on state plane at a million, I'm going to get this new drawing up and I'm not going to see my data. There's a tool. Before I hit this, I want you to notice we're at about 72 feet to the inch. That's what this template was set up for. This stuff is so dynamic, you don't need to worry about what it says right at the moment, all right? I'm going to use a tool right here. It's called Zoom Extents. Now, word of warning, any tool in Traverse PC that has extents in it will change the scale of your drawing. Extents means change scale, okay? Drill that into your head. You don't want to use any extents tool in Traverse PC if you set your scale where you want it, all right? Zoom Extents always does 3 things. Number 1, it zooms you out, shows you the whole sheet of paper if you're zoomed in. Number 2, it calculates minimum and maximum extents of your survey data, centers the sheet of paper under those extents, and number 3, scales the drawing to fit the sheet of paper. In this case, this happens to be an 8.5 by 14 legal size. All right, I hit Zoom Extents. Here's my data, and now we're at around a 30 scale. I will tell you, anytime you use Zoom Extents, you're not at a perfect scale. If we go into the drawing settings, we are actually at 29.85. I just wanted to show you this, all right? This is not set up to show 0.85, so it shows 30. So I want to choose a scale that's appropriate. Obviously, this is too big on this sheet of paper with the other stuff I got to have on here. Let's take it to a 50 scale. Okay, now I'm at a 50 scale. So now I want more room over here from my notes. I can do a control drag and drop in the background. Watching the status bar. See the status bar down here. Watch down in this area. See survey, press the control key to drag survey. Depending on what your cursor is on will determine what's down there. So if I'm on this, it doesn't say that. Now if I drag and drop, I'm dragging and dropping that label. If my cursor is here, it says press the control key to drag survey. This is not a simple drag and drop. That's the way it was when we initially added drawings to Traverse PC way back when. This was drag and drop. Too many people were accidentally moving their drawing, and they didn't like the results, so we added hold down the control key. So I hold down the control key and do a drag and drop. All right, I'm not changing the coordinates. Point 1 is still at 5,000, 5,000, where I translated to, remember. All right, so I can position it on the page. I can create dynamic offsets, whatever I need to do to finish up this drawing. But the data is going to do most of the work for you. And there are a lot of tools in here to automate a lot of your drawing process. Notice that things like this, 50 feet to the inch, that changed automatically because that is a variable. We saw that term earlier in the help topic, all right? The date, that's a variable. The file name, that's a variable. We have a lot of variables available to automate a lot of your processes. All right, so we like to, I need to wrap up now. I'm already a little over time. We like to tell people you can learn it in a day. It's just Windows. You already know how to do most of this stuff from working with other Windows programs. you can get comfortable with everything I've done right here in this little demo in a day easy. All right, no problem. And, you know, we want you to be successful with Traverse PC, so we provide you with a lot of resources. One resource right off the bat, I'm in the drawing view. I don't know what to do next. I hit my F1 key. Keep in mind, some computers, it's going to want function F1. I have information in the drawing view. Oh, I want to learn about tagging traverses. All right. So F1 key. Also in help, you can go and search for things like hotkeys or variables. All right, using variables. All right, so help, very useful to you. I got to it via the F1 key, but I could go to the help menu, etc., etc. That's one resource that's available to you. In the Tasks Manager, going to click on it so it sticks. Right here, I can go to the Traverse PC member area. In the member area, I think I'm logged in, yes. I can get to the Learning Center, very important. Lots of stuff out here in the Learning Center, lots of videos. You have access to the TPC user forum. You and other users can chat or whatever. You can ask questions on weekends or holidays when I'm not available to answer any phone calls, etc., etc. You also have access to the learning guides here, but within the program itself, you have access to the learning guides. If we go back to the Tasks Manager, right down at the bottom of the Tasks Manager, you have the learning guides, all right? In my opinion, all right, and I'm going to stress this one right here, Traverses, the very last learning guide in this list. The Traverses learning guide is the most important learning guide we have. And within the Traverses learning guide, the first chapter on Traverse View formats is the most important chapter. Please, 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 if you do nothing else in learning guides, go through the Traverse View formats chapter in the Traverses learning guide. I can't stress that enough. This then goes on to enter record data, field data, all of that, creating traverses, including how to create traverses graphically. Back to Traverse PC. In the Tasks Manager, the Alignments Learning Guide has a chapter on entering curves. You notice that I entered curves right in my Traverse View. Very few curves need to use the Horizontal Curve Kogo tool. Horizontal Curve Kogo tool is the most complex Kogo dialog box there is because there's just too many ways to define them. All right, so the more you can do with your Traverse format to just enter your curves right in the Traverse view, the better off you'll be. Chapter on, or a learning guide on Kogo. There is a learning guide on Quick View. The drawing view uses Quick View technology to draw your traverses. That's what Quick View talks about. Talks about how the Quick View technology interacts with your traverses. It's important to know. Also, drawing. Okay, so the drawing learning guide tells you how to work with your drawings. Okay, a lot more resources. Okay, so with that, I would have liked to take some questions, but I'm way over time, so I need to wrap up here. Thank you very, very much for joining me. I'll be shooting you an email with some more information, and please don't hesitate to contact me if you want assistance with something or you need some help with something. Lots of ways to get a hold of me via the user forum or by phone or email or whatever. But I will be shooting you an email in just a little bit. Thank you very much for joining me. I really enjoyed doing this, as you can tell, and I ran long. So thank you. You guys have a great day, great rest of your week, and above all, stay safe out there. Thank you very much.